Welcome to the Extinct Attractions Club weekly podcast.
Attention SKYWAY passengers. Please remain seated and keep your hands and arms inside the SKYWAY cabin.
Hey everybody, it's David O'Neill. Welcome to podcast show number 9 here at the Extinct Attractions World Headquarters in sunny Orange County, California. This week I have a special presentation for you all about one of my favorite extinct attractions of all time, and that would be the Disneyland Skyway. Now, for the past, about 2 or 3 weeks now, I've been working on this new Skyway story that stars Disney legend Bob Gurr. Bob did a lot of work on the original Skyway, and also when the round buckets turned to the square buckets in 1965, he designed the redesign on those buckets. But the Skyway is an interesting attraction in that it opened very early on in Disneyland history, and it actually predated the Matterhorn. It was one of my favorite rides of all time, just because I got to look down on the entire park and just get a sense for how large Disneyland was and how beautiful it was from the air. Our new Skyway Story DVD stars Bob Gurr, and basically it's one of our more simple kind of DVDs. It's got a story about the Skyway, and of course it's narrated by Brian Summer.
The Disneyland Skyway, the first aerial tramway of its kind in the United States, was one of the signature attractions at the park. Opened in 1956 by Walt Disney himself, it shuttled passengers between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, 100 feet above the ground, giving passengers fantastic views of Disneyland.
One of our recent developments is the Skyway. It's a pleasant ride between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland and offers a bird's-eye view.
Now, the Skyway, for me, I remember just thinking when I go on it with my little brother, hey man, don't shake the Skyway, don't shake the Skyway. And in later years, of course, I got braver and braver, and I started to shake the Skyway. And to me, the Skyway is really, really missed. I remember the first time I came into Disneyland, probably in 1995. I hadn't been there maybe 6 or 7 months, and I noticed something missing. And as we always get busy in our jobs and we don't get to go out to the park as often as we like, we come back there and the Skyway towers were gone, and that was kind of weird. The Skyway had always been there. I never thought once that the Skyway wouldn't be there. I always thought, well, how could they get rid of the Skyway? It's got the Matterhorn right there in the middle of it. And of course that started my brain ticking about, I think this was about 12 years ago or so. You know, how did the Skyway come to be? What was there before the Skyway? Was there anything before the Skyway? Obviously, it must have been an orange field, but seriously, how did they create the Skyway? What went on with the Skyway? And also, why were the buckets round and then they were square? These were questions that I always would ask myself about the Skyway. Now, the Skyway actually opened before the Matterhorn, and as you'll see in this video, as you know, we collect films from different people. You, the club members, we get films off of all kinds of different sources, and it was very difficult to locate any footage of the Skyway ride before the Matterhorn. But through the years, probably 5 or 6 years of searching, I've collected a couple of minutes worth of really, really neat footage that shows us actual ride over the Skyway Tower that used to be called Snow Hill. Now, this area called Snow Hill was where the Matterhorn is now. And Bob explains it very well in the video about what Snow Hill was and why in fact they even built the Matterhorn to kind of hide this huge tower that was in the middle of Disneyland. I mean, right next to the castle there was this really, really big eyesore of a tower that was a huge support tower, kind of the middle of the Skyway between the Fantasyland and Tomorrowland station. And this tower looked kind of like a electrical tower that you'd find in the parking lot. If you remember the old Disneyland parking lot before California Adventure, there was these huge electrical towers, which it's funny now, if you go to Disneyland and you look and you see probably like close by the Disneyland Hotel and then a little bit past the Disneyland Hotel where they're building that new Garden Walk area, there's those old electrical towers. Now, in the middle of the old Disneyland parking lot were these huge towers. When they built California Adventure, they put all the electrical wires underground, so you don't see them anymore. But there are still some twinges of that, because, I mean, you'd go to Disneyland, go into the parking lot, and there's these huge towers there. Now imagine going into Disneyland itself, and just to the right of the castle, as you look at it, where the Matterhorn should be, there's this huge electrical tower. I mean, it was not pretty. And I bet Walt, after they built the Skyway, they kind of said, hey, I want to get this Skyway. I went to Switzerland. It's really cool, this and that. But I'm sure he looked at it and saw, man, that's ugly. So I think everyone gave him a lot of grief for wanting to build a mountain and saying that it wouldn't fit within Main Street. But compared to what that tower used to be, it was an area that they called Snow Hill. And this area called Snow Hill, basically the omnibus, the double-decker bus that goes up and down Main Street that Bob Gurr also built, it kind of went up to Snow Hill, circled it, let some people off, got some people on, and went back down Main Street. But it was basically a bunch of leftover construction dirt, a fence, and, basically a place of no good, and it was really, really ugly as well. So when they built the Matterhorn, the Skyway actually stayed in the exact same alignment that it always had stayed in, but then they built a mountain around the Skyway tower, so they hung the wheels from the tower on the top of the Matterhorn, which is pretty cool in itself. When I was a little kid, I was too scared to go on the Matterhorn, this and that. Maybe I was too short, maybe I was just too scared, probably a little bit of both. But I used to love to go on the Skyway, and I'd get a glimpse of that, Matterhorn monster, the abominable snowman. He'd growl, and you could see him from the Skyway. And even when you go on the Matterhorn in later years, when I did get brave enough to go on the Matterhorn, you only see the monster for a second. And I remember in all the little guidebooks that you could really, really, really see good detail on the monster, and there would be a picture of Blaine Gibson and the abominable snowman. They'd be growling at each other, and it's so neat on the Skyway, you could always see the monster. And it was like, the Skyway wasn't really like a dark ride, but for a moment, when it goes to the Matterhorn, it almost was. It had some animatronic figures, it had some excitement. It was just cool, I really, really miss the Skyway. And I'm really happy this week to bring you the Skyway story with Bob Gurr. It's narrated by Brian Summer, and what's neat that I really, really, really like on this particular DVD is the last couple DVDs we've done, the Phantom Manor, Carousel of Progress, they've been very long documentaries. The Carousel was about an hour and a half. The Phantom Manor was about an hour and a half. The Skyway one's a little under a half hour for the documentary section, but it's got about 2.5 hours worth of video on it, because on the menu for the DVD, you'll actually get to choose different ride-throughs on this original Skyway. And, some of the choices I have: the Skyway historical video, which we've been talking about. Then there's two rides from 1986, a full ride-through from the Fantasyland station to the Tomorrowland station, nonstop, shooting the line, shooting the load area, shooting the whole thing. And then we've got 3 ride-throughs, 3 separate different ride-throughs in different months, different times, in 1987, sorry. And then a ride on the Disney World Skyway from 1996. And of course, the Disney World Skyway is very, very interesting because they didn't have a Matterhorn, nor did their Skyway just go straight across the park. Their Skyway actually started in a Fantasyland station, and that Fantasyland station looked a heck of a lot like our Fantasyland station here in Disneyland area, with the exception that it was a little bit larger, as pretty much everything in Disney World is just a little bit bigger than normal. But their Skyway actually made a 90-degree turn, which was pretty crazy. considering the Skyway there is much, much higher than our Skyway here in Disneyland. And but it actually went over the Autopia and then down almost all the way to the ground, and then it kind of made a 90-degree turn and took you all the way back up again, so you could see the Contemporary Resort, my favorite hotel at Disney World, tons of views of Tomorrowland, and then it went back down to this Skyway station, which was a lot nicer than our Skyway station. It featured a waterfall and all kinds of neat stuff like that, and the Skyway, for me, I remember when they closed in Disneyland, I went to Disney World and I thought, oh, how cool, they still have the Skyway. Well, they're never going to get rid of it here, you know. And then, guess what? In 1999, they got rid of the Skyway there too. And it was just, I was really, really upset. Really, you know, really bummed out about it. And I knew that I had filmed it pretty well and all that. And it's kind of weird because the eerie thing about both Disney World and Disneyland is that the Skyway stations in Fantasyland at Disneyland is still intact. It's the big Swiss chalet building. You can go to it today. You know, it's just right over there by Casey Jr. in the Storybook Land area. And the stairs are still there. It's got a beautiful garden that they've maintained over the years. The Skyway's been closed for 12 years. The station's still there. I remember probably about 5 or 6 years ago, before they put in the Winnie the Pooh ride, they were talking about, hey, you know, we're going to build a Winnie the Pooh attraction, and we're going to take the Skyway building, since it kind of looks like it's in the 100-acre wood, and we're going to have kind of a meandering pathway, and we could build the whole thing up there and make a nice dark ride and all that. And I was like, you know, if the Skyway's gone, that's a pretty good, nice fit for Winnie the Pooh, because it's kind of wooded, it's in Fantasyland, which is cool. But unfortunately, they decided to get rid of the Country Bear Jamboree and just leave the Skyway building there, which in a way I kind of like, but you know, I'd rather had seen it turn into a Winnie the Pooh thing, which oddly enough in Japan, their Skyway in Fantasyland, which looked almost exactly like the Disney World and Disneyland one, did turn into a Winnie the Pooh ride, which is kind of weird, kind of cool at the same time. And what's interesting is that at Disney World, it's the Skyway station is still there. It's really big. It's really, really pretty. It looks like a little Swiss house, and it's there. And their Disney World Tomorrowland station, it's still there too. The waterfall's off, but the stairs are still there and everything's there. Actually, in Disneyland, our Tomorrowland station was used as a maintenance bay for the rocket rods in the early part of 2000. But then when it closed in 2001, they just removed the Skyway station altogether. The stairs are still there, and the little hat shop, the Mod Hatter, is actually still there. But for the most part, there's no trace of the Skyway. Even in Tokyo, there's nothing. The Skyway station there got turned into a candy store. And aside from the Fantasyland station in Disneyland, there's really no way to know there was even ever a Skyway at all. Now at Disney World, it's a little more pronounced. The towers are all gone, but you can still view, if you go on Space Mountain, if you're riding on their People Mover system there, you can see the Skyway stations, and it's sad. You know, I wish the Skyway didn't have to go. It was always a really pretty trip, even though in later years I started to get afraid of heights, but I still enjoyed it. It's still a lot of fun. I remember when I went down to Florida a couple years back, I went to Busch Gardens, and they have a really, really big Skyway, and theirs goes over their little African belt where they have animals and whatnot, and it's a really, really long Skyway, really long. And also here in California at the San Diego Zoo, they have an attraction called the Skyfari. Now, the Skyfari looks almost identical to our Skyway. The very similar buckets, very similar design. It's still in operation today. The San Diego Zoo Skyway, I think, is the last operating sky ride in California. And then there's the one in Busch Gardens in Florida. And I'm sure there's a few others. If you guys know, email us at oldthemeparks@AOL.com. We'd love to know where the other Skyways are. But I mean, think about it. In the old days, California, probably, I'm talking 1970s when I was a little kid, You go over to Magic Mountain. There was an attraction there, actually called Eagle's Flight, and Magic Mountain Skyway was really, really, really high, way higher than Disneyland, way higher than Disney World's. And what's funny is I actually used to work at Magic Mountain when I was 16 years old, and one of my first jobs in attractions was working on the Eagle's Flight. So I thought, hey, this is like the Skyway, this is cool. So, and basically, to give you kind of a backstage view of what it was like to be a person working on a sky ride, I would go in there, and the first job they gave me was probably one of the worst ones you could get, and that's I would sit there when the Skyway buckets would come in, and I'd grab a bucket. You'd have to hold on to it to make it steady for the people to get out, and depending on how many people were in the bucket, how many people were, or how heavy this bucket was, depending on how many people there could be 4 big guys in there, or 2 little kids in there, it depends. But that bucket, you've got to catch it, and you've got to stop it with your own weight, and then you've got to hold it while these people get out of the bucket. And, all day long, and luckily, you've got about 15 minutes on that station, then you go over to the load area where you're just asking how many and all that. But, man, when you're sitting there, and you've got to stop, think about it, like 450 pounds of stuff, of people in there, and you've got to stop it with all your weight for 15 minutes. That's a big workout, and I was, 16 years old and stopping these buckets, and, then I go and load them up, and it's a little bit easier to load them because they come to you empty. You hold on to them, the people go in there, and you kind of give it a little push up to the, what was then the Ninja Station. But every once in a while, a funny thing would happen. They would give us a call on the little telephone there, because we would talk between our station and the station at the top there, the top of the mountain at Magic Mountain. And their Skyway, too, by the way. It was good, because if you ever go to Magic Mountain, man, it's hard to walk around there all day. It's Magic Mountain. It's a mountain, and you got to walk around it. So the Sky Ride there would take you to the top of the Ninja area, the Ninja Station, and that was cool for me. Because if I was going to go to the Ninja Station, I would always take the Sky Ride. But every so often we get this phone call. And, it'd go something like this. Hello, how you doing, Skyway Station? And then they'd say, hey. And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, it's a bucket war. And a bucket war was a bad thing. Because basically what a bucket war was, is the guy up at the top station was going to load as many large people as he could. I'm talking big guys, big women, whoever he can, to get this bucket heavy. Without exceeding weight capacity, although I'm sure they did, because they would pack as many larger people as they can. They combine parties. If 2 people wanted to ride by themselves, they said, oh, I'm sorry, the line's too full today. We're going to have to pack these buckets full. So they would literally pack these buckets full. Then, this is the thing. Okay, not only are they all full, so you're going to get a bunch of heavy buckets, right? They're going to put the buckets, they're going to hold them in the station as long as they can. Like normally you'd take a bucket, load it up, send it across. Take a bucket, load it up, send it across. No, this time they're going to load up a bucket, hold it, load up a bucket, hold it, load up a bucket, hold it, load up one more, and then boom, 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 4 buckets go across, and then as fast as they can get the rest of the people on there full. So you're standing there at the other end of the station, and probably for about a minute and a half, there's no Skyway bucket, so you're kind of standing there, no big deal. And then you look up in the sky, and there's a bucket full of people, and right behind is a full of people, right behind it full of people. And I'm talking 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 full buckets, all the way packed full of people. And you go, hey, it's a bucket war. And you get your buddy, and because you couldn't stop them all yourself. And if they smack into each other, you're going to shut the ride down. You're going to get busted. Someone might get hurt. So you literally have to work as fast as you can. Grab this heavy bucket, get the people out. Grab this heavy bucket, get the people out. Grab this heavy, and then, of course, on our side, we want to fire back, and our only ammunition is, okay, it's a bucket war. Get as many people as you can. And then we try to send across as many full buckets as we could in order for this bucket war to work. So it was kind of funny in that, being 16, it was kind of funny. I'm sure these days you'd get sued. There'd be all kinds of problems. In fact, the laws had all changed in California that the sky rides really can't operate anymore. And I'm not sure exactly how the San Diego Zoo manages to still operate their sky ride. But they do, and you can still go on that, and then the one in Busch Gardens in Florida. And, interestingly enough, if you guys remember in Santa Monica, the old Pacific Ocean Park pier, they had what I thought was the scariest sky ride of all time. There were these little bubbles, glass bubbles, and they look like little diving bells, and I think they were even called like a diving ride or a diving something. If anyone knows, let me know. But basically, you went down to the end of this pier, this rickety old pier that was built in like 1909, and you'd ride their aerial tramway back to the beach. But the problem was, if you've ever been to the beach, on certain days, it's ultra windy. So it's really windy. You're over the ocean on the rickety pier. The Skyway supports are on this old pier. And you've got to glide across the ocean in these little glass diving bells that are really tight, claustrophobic. Just look at some pictures. Go online, search Pacific Ocean Park, and you'll see some of these pictures. In fact, on the Skyway DVD here, I have some film, not a lot, but some film of the Pacific Ocean Park Sky Ride. So I did place it as a menu choice on the Skyway DVD, along with also a trip to the San Diego Zoo in their Sky Ride, which I thought was neat. So, I mean, in total you get, 6 different full ride-throughs of the Sky Ride from Disneyland, and then one from Disney World. The history section, the San Diego Zoo, Pacific Ocean Park Skyway, and there's one other thing on this DVD which I thought is fairly interesting, and that is in about 1983. No, it was it was 1982. There was a slight tornado, hurricane type weather around Anaheim, and it was a spring day. I think they said it was either March or April time. And what actually happened was a lot of people on the Skyway, Disneyland had, I don't know if you guys remember, but on the towers there were these kind of little wind things, and if it got too windy, they would shut the Skyway down, and the guy would go, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've temporarily stopped the Skyway. This is a routine procedure. Don't be alarmed," that kind of stuff. But I don't know what they were thinking, because usually when I worked there in the 80s, they would stop the Sky Ride if it started raining. They would stop the Sky if it's too much wind, that kind of thing. But think about it. There's like either a hurricane or a tornado. I'm not really sure what it was, but a heavy weather system. And, they're just operating the Skyway like, hey, no big deal. So what happened was this weather came in, and it literally, they had to shut the Skyway down, stop it. But all the people were still on it. And, that's not necessarily a good thing. And what happened is all these news cameras came out, and they got wind of this story. And basically, this footage that we obtained is really incredible.
Attention, Skyway passengers. Please remain seated and keep your hands and arms inside the Skyway cabin. Efforts have already begun to assure your safe exit from the Skyway. Please be ready to follow the instructions of our trained personnel. They will be in touch with you soon. Again, we are preparing your safe exit from the Skyway. Trained personnel will be assisting you soon. Please help us by remaining calm.
It's really crazy footage. I mean, these people are getting on these ladders by the Anaheim Fire Department and literally climbing down on a fire truck ladder. Like, if you see those big fire trucks, they've got the ladder, they extend it out, and the guy's going up to a burning building. They're doing that with the Sky Ride. They got all of Tomorrowland shut down, all these news cameras in there, and 5 or 6 fire trucks, policemen, paramedics, all kinds of stuff. And these little kids, like 2 or 3-year-old kids, are climbing down with firemen, and these women and these guys are climbing down out of the sky buckets. And it's crazy. And the news went crazy about it. I mean, they've got all these stories.
Usually a sedate spin above the park, became an unexpected thrill ride. Many of the stranded riders were children. The Matterhorn and People Mover rides all stalled. There were no injuries, but at a park reception center, Mickey Mouse helped calm the jitters. The biggest complaints were cold feet. In nearby Fullerton, a tornado reportedly touched down at a
It's
shopping
really,
mall.
really
A witness
amazing
said there was a
footage, and there's
swirling
probably
cloud of
5 or
dust
6
and a
news
loud
reports here
explosion
that we
and windows
included on the
blew out.
DVD as well.
Thunderclouds stacked
And
up over Orange and Los Angeles counties as heavy rain
it's
fell.
really, really
National Weather Service
interesting.
called it a
I don't think
fast-moving
now,
storm
if this
front
kind of
formed by
incident
tonight.
happened, that they would allow
Caught
news
it,
cameras and
not
all
so
that
quickly forgotten.
inside the park.
Dennis Murphy, NBC News,
But
Los Angeles.
it's crazy.
Late this afternoon, a sudden storm with high winds hit Southern California. One of the worst hit areas was Disneyland. Judd Rose reports.
The sudden storm hit Disneyland while springtime crowds were enjoying what had been pleasant weather. At least 100 people were trapped on rides in the park after the tornado swooped in without warning, ripped out power cables, and stalled rides in their tracks. Rescue teams from Disneyland and a nearby fire department came in to pluck people from the cars of the rides. Many were taken to a first aid center in the park, but apparently no one was hurt, and Disneyland was not shut down by this, the first tornado in its 27-year history. Meanwhile, another tornado touched down in the nearby town of Fullerton.
So
causing damage
it
to
was
a
kind of
shopping center
a
there.
crazy find when I discovered that I had this footage from, oh geez, it was from a really long time ago. And I finally got to use it in something, which, that's kind of cool. But I included the footage on the DVD so you can watch the news reports of the Skyway and the poor, helpless Disneyland guests being taken off the Sky Ride. I don't know if that's the first time that ever happened or what. Maybe some of you that worked there back in the day know. But, man, it was crazy. Basically, the Skyway is really, really missed. I've got a poster of it in my world headquarters here in the Extinct Attractions Club edit room. And what's interesting about this Skyway poster, if you guys take a look at it, either on our website or just, search Disneyland Skyway poster on Google, and take a look at the guy in the red bucket. He's wearing a suit, and the lady next to him is wearing like an evening gown. So, I mean, the Skyway is kind of a classy ride. If you also look at the red bucket, there's a blue bucket behind it, and right over on the left side are these large rectangles. And that attraction is an attraction that was never built. That was actually called the airboats. And the airboats were, of course, going to be the world's most thrilling boat ride. And they never built the airboats. Instead, the submarine lagoon was built. But it's interesting that on the Skyway poster, and it was never changed ever, the rocket jet poster was changed from the Astro Jets to the rocket jets, similar poster, but the Skyway poster never ever changed. It's got the original rockets in the location, it's got where the yacht bar is down by Tomorrowland, and then it's got the airboat ride, which was never ever built. But that's kind of the scoop on the Skyway poster. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoy the Skyway DVD, and I hope you will email us and let us know what you think of it. Also on the DVD too, kind of neat is we've got opening day footage also of the Skyway, where they had all these Switzerland dancers and whatnot out there. It was really, really, really pretty interesting.
Skyway's inauguration festivities, Swiss alpine dancers added color and gaiety to the happy occasion.
I love this Swiss music.
The Skyway's round buckets were elegant, and the entire ride system was a soothing experience that enabled the guests to feel like they were flying.
There's some great old Super 8 footage too.
Disney contacted several of the manufacturers of
This is, of course, Bob Gurr.
ropeways and settled on the Von Roll Company in Switzerland. They're a very old line company that have been building that type of equipment for a very long time. So the equipment was a very normal, easy to buy, off-the-shelf set of parts. We would build the towers, and then rather than buying one of their cars, Disney decided to build their own car.
Part of the fun of doing these videos, at least for me, is that I spend 2 or 3 weeks really studying all the film that we have. I mean, throughout the year, Kristen and I and Patrick look through our footage, find all the shots of a particular attraction, whether it be Skyway or People Mover or Matterhorn. Really, the historical documentary process of this is a lot of fun. because when you spend a couple of weeks, hunting for shots of the Skyway before the Matterhorn got put up, I mean, you really get a sense of how everything fit together back in the old Disneyland times. There's a few shots. There's one shot actually in particular that I think is really interesting, and you'll see it on the video, is that they're shooting the Skyway from the Tomorrowland Autopia, and they're filming it straight where the Matterhorn should be, and there's no Matterhorn there. Then I cut to a shot probably 2 or 3 years later, and there it is, the Matterhorn right where it is today, but shot from the exact same location. So literally you'll see no Matterhorn, and then boop, there's a new Matterhorn right there where there was that big ugly tower we talked about. I just think that's really, really interesting that someone had the foresight to shoot that way. It was probably a happy accident, and then we somehow got all the footage and we're bringing it to you. So it's really interesting how the historical process works in making these documentaries. I mean, I just enjoy so much just watching the old footage and putting it together in an interesting way for you. And I know that Bob had a good time. Bob Gurr, Disney legend Bob Gurr, had a good time with us talking about the Sky Ride. And, it doesn't matter who you talk to. I mean, talk to someone who's been to Disneyland or knows about the Sky Ride, and almost everybody misses it. It was a great ride. I mean, the lines were always full. And it's sad that at Tokyo Disneyland, and Disney World, the Skyway's just gone. And there's not a heck of a lot aside from, perhaps if you see on eBay or every so often a Mouse Surplus has a Sky Bucket. I know a couple of friends of mine have a few Sky Buckets, and it's really neat to see it. But, I really want to go on the Skyway again. And that's kind of why in the scheme of our DVDs, we were working on the Monorail DVD, and that's coming out very, very soon, as well as our all-new Pirates of the Caribbean historical DVD, which will be out as well soon. But I just wanted to work on the Skyway. So basically that's what I did, and it was fun. It's a really, really neat video. There's not 2 or 3 videos to buy this time. It's just one video. It's got everything on it for you guys, and it's neat. So that's my sales pitch for the Skyway DVD. But basically I just kind of wanted to talk about the Skyway and let you guys know that it's a neat capsulization of the Sky Ride. And anyway, I hope to hear your comments on it. Also, I got a new film which you guys will all be interested about, and I'm going to be announcing it in the next couple weeks. I've got some more interviews that we're going to be shooting, but it's a 16mm film, and what's amazing about it is it was done by Monsanto, and it's got opening day footage of Adventure Through Inner Space and really, really clear, nice film of the inside of Adventure Through Inner Space.
Far beyond the normal limits of magnification, countless millions of molecules and atoms make up a strange and fascinating world, where electrons travel faster than thought itself, and the tremendous energy of the nucleus defies description. The question of inner space, and what is it, lures thousands of people into the Monsanto Pavilion daily. And there they find the answer in a dramatic presentation of scientific fact. To reach this vast world beyond the normal limits of magnification, visitors journey through Monsanto's mighty microscope into the realm of inner space.
So soon, my friends, there'll be a new version of Adventure Through Inner Space with Bob Gurr, who designed, of course, the Atomobiles, Exitencio, who wrote the script, and now added with Richard Sherman, who wrote the song Miracles from Molecules, and a special guest, actually 2 special guests, and this new film. This is going to be our new Adventure Through Inner Space DVD, and it's going to be called the Adventure Through Inner Space Special Edition DVD. And you'll see why it's special. It probably won't be out for maybe a month or more, but it's really, really interesting. Also this week, we're going to continue work on the 20,000 Leagues DVD series, which the first DVD in that series is going to be on the walkthrough attraction. And we've been getting a lot of interesting elements for that to bring you a walkthrough DVD. from the 20,000 Leagues in Tomorrowland attraction. So lots of neat stuff going on. Of course, it is time to say goodbye now, and many of you will be asking, where is Kristen Taylor? Where is my lovely hostess? Well, she's going to be back next week, and we should have a special all about the new monorail set that is going to be coming out soon. So lots of stuff going on. Summertime is upon us now, and it's a great time to visit the park. So hope to see you guys there, and until then, I'll see you then.
This has been the Extinct Attractions Club Weekly Podcast with Kristen Taylor, a production of the Extinct Attractions Club and is copyrighted 2006. Hostess, Kristen Taylor. Announcer, Brian Summer. Show producer, David O'Neill. Please send your comments to us at oldthemeparks@aol.com. Attention podcast.